Hey everyone, it's Bella, and welcome back to the Greenius, where we meet people who are helping the planet in big, bold, and sometimes beautifully quiet ways. Today's guest is someone who believes that protecting nature isn't just about science, plastic, or policies, it's about people, about how we learn, how we grow, and how we choose to live every day. She has worked with communities, educators, and young people across the world in places like Beyond Green, Preferred Travel Group, and even National Geographic, helping them understand that sustainability isn't just about saving forests, penguins, or oceans, it's about creating a future where humans and nature can learn to thrive together. She's someone who listens deeply, thinks creatively, and believes that even small voices can spark big change. And I'm so excited for you to meet her. Please welcome Nina Voce. Yeah, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. It's really nice to meet you.
Yeah, likewise. Heard a lot about you, and it's good to finally meet you.
Yes, no, thank you so much for inviting me to this discussion. Your dad told me all about you when we were in
Yeah.
Mexico, and I looked into your podcast and all the work you've been doing. It's very, very impressive.
Thank you so much, and I'm so honored to have you on. It's great. I've heard you have so much knowledge, and I'm so excited for you to share it with us today.
Fantastic.
Great. So let's get started straight. Your work sits like right at the intersection of travel and sustainability, which honestly sounds like one of those careers that people don't think exist until they hear about it and see someone doing it. I'd love to start at the very beginning. What first sort of pulled you into this world, and how did your path unfold from there?
So it's a really funny story. I get this question a lot, and the long story short is my career and the way that it has unfolded was not planned from the
Oh,
beginning.
really? Yeah.
So I was always, I guess where it really began was my love of travel
Hmm.
and other cultures. And I had the privilege and opportunity to study abroad in Japan when I was in high school. I'm
Wow.
from the northeast of the United States, from a state called Maine, a very rural little town of 800 people. But the first time I ever tried sushi, actually, when I was 9 years old, I remember my world changing. And I looked at my uncle and I said, where is this from? And he said, it's from Japan. And I was like, where's that? And he showed me on a map and I said, I want to live there. So I became really interested and fascinated by Japanese culture. And when I was in high school, I had the opportunity to do a semester in Japan. I went to a Japanese high school. I've lived with a Japanese host family. And as you can imagine, as a 16-year-old coming from rural Maine, it completely changed my world. And I came back and I just had such an expansive feeling of how beautiful and large and exciting the world was, and how different cultures were something I really wanted to learn more about. And so that really led me to travel as much as I possibly could. So from a very young age, that was always my motivating force and my passion. It was food and travel and other cultures. And I just relentlessly pursued opportunities wherever I could to take advantage of travel. And so that was really my inroad, I would say. And that's always been consistent throughout my life. When it comes to sustainability, and I'm sure you know this from your own experiences, I think as you travel more and you see more places and you speak to more people and you have these, kind of transformational experiences, you dig a bit deeper and you say, okay, like I'm in these amazing places. What's my impact and how can I try to make it better? And how do I get to know and support people who are doing really good work here? And so that was something that I became very interested in. And then actually through asking those questions and looking for opportunities abroad, I actually wound up studying in college. I went to New York University and I studied media and communications, spent 3 semesters abroad, went to Turkey on a summer program, and immediately moved to South America right after I graduated. And I actually took a position at a little boutique lodge on the beach in northern Peru. And I really became fascinated with hospitality, and specifically hospitality as a way to welcome people into different places and allow them experiences that would let them engage in local places in a way that was positive. And so that intersection of hospitality and sustainability and travel is really how I ended up in the career I now am, because I had an amazing opportunity after that to move to Mexico and become a general manager of a amazing luxury sustainable hotel on a 30,000 acre biosphere reserve on the coast of
Wow.
Mexico, where they were raising all of their own produce. They had biodynamic farming. They were toasting their coffee beans, and it was just this incredible operation and experience. So I moved to Mexico, learned so much about sustainable agriculture, and again, looking at ways that travel and guest experiences can be integrated, with sustainable experiences. So that was how it all came together for me. And then from there, I just kept saying yes to things that felt exciting and
Awesome.
new and I could learn from. And so I did actually end up being able to take on a position with National Geographic from there.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
And that was really where I became a sustainability auditor and eventually a sustainability judge for Nat Geo. And that's really where my passions transformed into a career.
Awesome. That's amazing. Wow, what a journey. And I think we can all tell that your love for travel, sustainability, and culture started very early. You know, the food, the people, and the small details of a place just shaped how you see the world. Was there a particular moment or experience where travel and sustainability stopped just being something fun or intriguing and became something really meaningful to you?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'm thinking back to the first time that I really like the stars aligned and I really realized how powerful of a force this could be. Was actually on my first National Geographic site inspection. So I went to a biosphere reserve in central Mexico, and there was a local family there that was doing just truly remarkable conservation work in this beautiful ecosystem. And they were working with local women to start micro enterprises and food stands all around this destination. And they were just real pioneers and leaders in this area. And I was so blown away by how one family could have such an amazing impact and could have such an incredible ripple effect with all of their communities, and really in protecting this incredible place. And the last day of that visit, the mother of the family was giving a speech on environmental conservation to a large room of school children that had come from all over this destination from different small towns. And they were gathered in this room. And the mother was just explaining to them in simple terms and showing them how deeply interconnected the well-being of their life, the well-being of their families' lives, and the well-being of the planet are all integrated. And I just remember looking around the room and seeing these children's eyes light up and they were beaming. And the way she was talking about it was so inspiring. And tourism, they had built this entire tourism ecosystem to really fund their projects. So showing also these children how they could be a part of positive solutions that gave back to their home. And I just saw these children, their minds were opened. And I was in the back, like nearly in tears, just so incredibly inspired. And I thought, if this one person can have so big of an impact, how can I, as in my career and as a professional, support more people like this, connect more people like this around the world? And that really became kind of my inspiration.
Wow, that's so beautiful. And I think everybody really misunderstands what travel and sustainability means. I think many understand that it's giving up comfort for gaining something richer. Why do you think that that perception still exists? Why do people are like, okay, sustainable travel, I'm gonna go rough it, I'm gonna be in the jungle, but that's not actually what it is. Um, Even though we know that sustainability in travel can be beautiful and rewarding, why do you think that happens and how can we change it?
Great question. So, I think sustainable travel has evolved dramatically in the past couple of decades. For a lot of people, well, there's a couple things I would say. For a lot of people, when they think about sustainability, first of all, they're thinking about the environment, right? They're thinking
Yeah.
about reduce, reuse, recycle. They're thinking about maybe plastics, but they have many people have a limited perspective on what sustainability actually is.
Yes, of
So for
course.
us, like at Beyond Green, which is the brand that I now oversee, which is a really incredible community of bold leaders all around the world that are advancing sustainable travel, for us, it's much more holistic. So our pillars are nature, culture, and community. So I think, again, if you have a wider understanding that sustainability is not just saying no to a plastic water bottle, that's part of it, and
Yeah,
that's
of
important, of
course.
course, but it's so much larger than
Of
that.
course.
And so I think there's a few factors. One is that many people don't fully understand how holistic sustainable travel really is. The second part of it is many people, I think, have an old school or outdated perspective of a eco lodge being kind of a very rustic, cabin in the back and beyond, where maybe, to your point, they have to give up comfort. Maybe they're not on a comfortable bed. Maybe there's, it's very hot. There's bugs. They have maybe this idea that's extremely outdated that that's what sustainable travel is. But
Yeah.
we've evolved so much past that at this point that sustainability, I mean, every single property in the world, I would argue should be and can be and has the opportunity to be a sustainable leader. And what that actually means today is not only are you reducing your environmental impact, giving back to communities, supporting the protection of nature and cultural heritage, but you're also giving travelers an amazing experience. And I think the properties and the travel companies and the travelers that understand that true sustainable travel is the most amazing kind of experience you
Of
can
course.
have, because you're tapping directly into the heart of destinations. You're meeting real people, you're learning, you're growing, and you come back different. You come back changed. And that can be while you're sleeping in a comfortable bed. That can be while you're having unforgettable meals. So, to your point, sustainable travel is not about giving something up. It's actually about
Yeah,
gaining something much deeper. And I think we're getting to the point where more people understand that.
of
But that's
course.
really the work that I do, is to spread that message.
Amazing. And going back to Beyond Green, you talk about the importance of nature, culture, community, which are your pillars. Which of them do you think tends to be the most overlooked in the industry? And why does that matter?
Good point. I would say so. Culture and community. I mean, they're all the reality is they're all deeply interconnected, of course, right?
Yes.
So you can't silo one from the other, because they all impact one another, and they are all part of a larger system. However, I do think culture and cultural heritage
Mm-hmm.
is something that can be challenging, especially in the context of hotels, for them to really understand, okay, how can I be a steward or a protector or a champion of the culture of this place?
Yeah.
Because for some people, again, this might be, it might be an outdated perspective of, well, we don't really have culture around us because maybe we're not near an archaeological site. But,
Yeah.
I think where we're heading, and what our Beyond Green members understand, is that culture is, yes, it is traditional and historic, but it's also living cultural heritage. That's all of the things that make travel a joy. That's food, dance, art, crafting. And so, I think that once the industry kind of is able to understand that bringing guests and inviting them into community-led cultural experiences,
Mhm.
that is one of the most incredible experiences that we can have as travelers. And there's so much richness, I think, and benefit from travelers being able to see the rich tapestry of the world
Yeah.
firsthand, and to actually say, wow, I had no idea, that there was this deep, rich culinary heritage in this beautiful island that I went to. I thought I was going to just an amazing beach. And, I ended up taking a cooking class with a grandma, and we were hand grinding, seeds from the local tree. And she taught me her local family recipe. And those are the experiences that stick with and move people. And so I would say it's the intersection of culture and community that can be challenging for the industry, or for specific leaders to fully embrace and understand how they can offer that. But once they do, I think that's where they really start to see transformation in their guests.
Wow, I totally agree. And one of the messages we're trying to get across is that sometimes the most powerful memories actually come from the people we meet rather than the places themselves. Is there someone that you encountered on one of your many journeys who really changed the way you think about tourism, sustainability, or your responsibility?
Wow, that's such a good question. There are so many people that I've met along the way. including my mentor, Costas Christ, who was the pioneer of ecotourism back in the day and was the founder of Beyond Green Travel, which then evolved and became Beyond Green Consulting, which is the sister branch of Beyond Green Hotels. So I had the great privilege of working with someone who's a true pioneer and leader in this space for many years. He taught me, an enormous amount, and he also really sparked and fueled my passion for this. But in my travels, there actually is someone that comes to mind. So when I was traveling, I won't date myself here, but let's say I think it must have been 2013, somewhere around then.
Yeah.
I had the opportunity to go to Myanmar, and Myanmar had in Asia, and it had just recently opened its borders to tourism. So there wasn't much of a tourism industry there, but there were some people on the ground that had started to develop ecotourism projects and community-driven projects because they understood that as visitors started to come to their country, they could use that as a powerful force to catalyze change in their homes. So we had the opportunity actually to stay at this amazing guest house up in the north of the country. And the owner of the guest house, he had this prolific career, which I wasn't aware of when I first met him. I could tell he was an inspired, amazing human. He had started a guest house that was connected to a school for orphans in his area that he had also started. So all the funds from the guest house went to the school. He welcomed you there. You met the children. It was this it was this very moving experience, and clearly he was doing this amazing work. But I could just tell he had so much knowledge and wisdom. And I actually, after the first night of staying there, I asked someone at the property, do you think I could sit down with him for just a couple of hours? I'd really love to pick his brain. And they said, oh, unfortunately, he's already gone back to Yangon. It's 12 hours away by bus. He's back in the capital. And I said, do you think he would be open to talking to me if I go there? So I was so motivated to get to know this man. I took an overnight 12 to 15 hour bus, got to the Capitol, knocked on his door. He invited me into his home, and he walked me through what is still to this day one of the most incredible life stories that I've ever heard in my career, that ended and culminated in him, having these sustainable tourism concepts brought to life. And I just remember leaving that conversation again and just being so incredibly moved by how resilient humans are and how a good idea and passion can really overcome all odds. And that might sound cliche, but it was, in this case, I stayed at his project and I saw the impact, and it was just incredible. And again, I'm like, if one person can create this with their community, what if we all did more of this together? What impact could we have then?
Yeah, I can tell you must have been completely baffled by what he was saying. And you've been on this amazing sort of gradient on the hospitality world, and from these really small eco-focused groups to very large hotel consultation firms and groups like Beyond Green. What do those contrasting environments actually teach you about what sustainability looks like done right? It doesn't matter who's doing it, but how are they doing it so that it makes an impact?
Great question. So I would say, overall, if you're kind of zooming out and looking at the industry at large, we have to move towards looking at impact, because I think for a very long time, aspirational brands just saying, or aspirational messages, we're committed to the planet, we aspire to make the world a better place. That is really, while potentially noble, depending on the situation, possibly not, possibly greenwashing. We're so much past that now that I think, regardless of the project, regardless of the location, you have to be able to drill down and say, what impact am I having? How can I quantify that? And what does it mean to people who live here? What does it mean to people's lives? And, I think that really, as we move forward as an industry, impact, collecting data to be able to drive really transparent and meaningful decisions about how we evolve this industry will continue to become increasingly important. And also, travelers are so much more savvy now than they've ever been before. And, I'll allow you to speak for travelers your age, but I think that younger people growing up right now, they're living and growing up in a very different world than I did, than my parents did, than my grandparents did. And there's so much more access to so much more information that, you can't get away with just saying, we hope to do this or we wish to do this. Like, people want to know, like, hey, no, what are you actually doing? What is the impact? And I want to be a part of it or I don't. And so I think that overall, the more that companies, destinations, et cetera, can really use that as their lens and understand that we really don't have time right now to just be playing around. Like, we actually have to work together to make demonstrable impact. And I think in my work, in my role, what is increasingly just, undeniable is that collaboration is at the heart of that. None of us can do it alone, and we can all be inspired individuals, inspired organizations, but we have to come together and rally around collective goals, impact-driven goals, and do this work together because it really does take all of us.
Yeah, and you must walk into hotels now with what I imagine is a very well-developed sustainability instinct. When you arrive somewhere new, what's one thing that immediately tells you that a hotel really does care?
Good question. So, I mean, there's always, when you first walk into a place, I think if you walk into a lobby and you look around and you ask yourself kind of, where am I right now? If you're just in a kind of box chain hotel that looks the same, whether you're in Dubai or Miami, or Nairobi, that's a pretty strong indication to me that that hotel is not necessarily rooted in sense of place and probably isn't necessarily specifically invested in being really representative of their destination. And so that's not to say that that's not to say that they can't be doing good work, but I think when you do walk into a hotel and it's just alive with this like rich identity, you see local art, you're looking at the menu and you're seeing these amazing ingredients with little stories of the local producers and how it was sourced. When you check in and, you receive storytelling about the area where you are, maybe some tips or guidance for how to be a responsible traveler in that area, and also how to have amazing experiences, right? Because again, I think we can't expect travelers or guests just to make better travel decisions or make more sustainable choices because it's the right thing to do. We have to also show them how that's a superior choice and how it benefits them. And so, for example, one of our Beyond Green members, I love this. They're in a city center, so this goes to show you don't have to be in a rural area to have these initiatives in place. And they do two things immediately that I just love. This is up in BC and British Columbia on Vancouver Island. In the middle of a city, when you check in, they ask if you want housekeeping. And if you say, no, I'm actually okay, I don't need it for the next couple of days, for every night that you decline housekeeping, they plant 10 kelp in your name in the surrounding ocean. And they work with a nonprofit that is strategically planting kelp to help restore ecosystems, to help fight climate change. It's directly tied to the cultural heritage of the indigenous communities there. And so there's this like amazing story behind it. And it's an easy yes, right? Or if you do want housekeeping, okay, maybe I do, but I now want to support this initiative. I would love to plant 10 kelp. So that's just such an easy thing that like immediately gets people thinking about where am I and what's the story here and how can I participate? And then the second thing that they do immediately is they hand you a local walking map of the city that highlights indigenous owned businesses and restaurants within walking distance, as well as other locally owned restaurants that have a really strong sustainability ethos. And then they also offer free bikes. So it's like, hey, go explore, go check out these amazing places that are like really doing good work that you're also going to have a cool experience at. And to me, that's such a wonderful way to be welcomed to a place because now you have all these new ideas that you wouldn't have necessarily found on your own.
Nina, thank you so much for sharing your story and your ideas with us today. You've shown us that sustainability isn't just about what we know, it's about what we choose, about how we treat each other, how we learn from nature, and how we stay curious about the world around us. But we're not done yet. In part 2, we talk about how people can lead change, about what gives Nina hope for the future, and the small actions that can truly make a big difference. So don't forget to tune in next time, because this conversation is only getting started. Catch you on the green side.